The next thing we're going to talk about is adding transitions to your project. Now what a transition will do is help you go from one video clip into the next. Now in many cases you're just going to want to have it go directly from one clip into the next one without having any sort of a transition there. This would be the case in things like conversations or fight scenes or any sort of action or sports scene where it's just immediately going to go from one shot right into the next. But if you want to show something like the passage of time, or that you're changing location, or sometimes just to make images look a little bit more interesting if you're using still photographs in your video, you're going to want to use transitions. One of the really nice things about Premiere Pro is that the transitions are super easy to use in this program, but they are somewhat customizable, meaning that you can make them look, for the most part, what you want to make them look like. So in order to add a transition to your project, you first need to make sure that your video clips are not at either the very beginning or the very end of the clip. What I mean by this is this first clip here. This is at the very end of the clip. If I try to move it over, it's not going to work because there is no more footage here. This right here is the very last frame of footage that we have. The same is true of this clip here. There's nothing there. Even if you try to pull it back out, there is no more footage to be used. Now this is going to be problematic when we try using transitions, simply because what a transition is going to do is it's going to take a small amount of each clip that you've deleted, and it's going to use that to help the transition. So if you try adding a transition to two clips that have no deleted footage, what we often call handles, meaning it's something that the transition can grab onto, it's either not going to work at all. For example, in some programs like Final Cut Pro, it won't work at all. It's just the transition's going to disappear. In this program, what'll happen is it'll tell you that it's going to try to work, but it's going to have freeze frames or duplicate frames in it. And that's absolutely not what you're going to want. But I'll show you what that looks like first, before I show you the right way to do it. One of the easiest ways to use transitions is to simply go over to the Effects tab, open it up. We're in Video Transitions, and they're all categorized based on the type that they are, the style of them. Just so you know, the most basic type, the only ones that are really used professionally anyway, are dissolves, specifically the cross dissolve. So in order to add a transition, all you do is you simply grab it, and drag it over to your project, and you see how it lights up when you hold it between the two clips. Normally, you just let it go, and that's going to be the end of it. Again, because there's no handles or there's no extra footage on this clip, it's going to let me, but it's going to give me an error message saying that it's going to contain repeated frames, which basically means it's there, but what it's doing is it's actually freeze framing the footage. So it's not actually a clean transition. So you see how in this shot he goes to turn the camera on and it freezes for a split second before he comes in? That's okay, but it's not really what you're going to want. So instead, all you have to do is just delete a little bit of one and a little teeny tiny bit of another one, add the transition onto this one, and it'll have just a little bit of a cleaner look to it. And that's all you have to do to add transitions. From this point, it's just a matter of picking one that you like the look of. So maybe I want a slide, which is something that's very Star Wars-esque, so I'm just going to take this one, pull it on, and it slides over. What's also interesting about these transitions is that you can customize them to an extent. For example, if we take a look at, say, the iris, let's just pick a random one, we'll do the iris box, pull it over the top of it, take a look at it, and there it is. So it's just coming out of the middle of the screen. Now, if we want this transition to go faster or slower, or if we want it to take up more time, simply all we have to do is go to our arrow, and we can make the transition physically longer. So now it's going to take a lot more time, and it's going to go a lot slower. So that's one really simple, easy way to customize it. Other ways that you can customize your transitions to make it look a little bit more interesting is if you double-click on it. We are going to now be introduced to the effects control window. This is something we haven't really used yet in class, but it's something we will be using a little bit more as we go. So the first thing we're going to look at is here is what your first video looks like. Here's what your second video looks like. In some cases, when you open this, it's going to look like this instead. All you have to do is, if this button right here is not clicked, where it says show actual sources, if you click it, it's going to show us what we're looking at, which will make it easier. First thing that we can do is, maybe instead of having the video come out of the middle of the screen, we want it to go the other way. Simply click the reverse button. Now when we watch it, it goes into the screen instead of the other way around. Some other interesting things that we can do is, let's say instead of coming directly out of the center of the screen, we maybe instead want it to come from up in the top corner. Easy enough. All you have to do is come over to this screen, find this little dot right in the middle, and this function is not available on all of the transitions, only certain ones. Just grab it, drag it to where you want this point to be. This is called the anchor, because it's going to anchor the center of that image. Go to watch it, and there it is. This is really handy, especially if you have a very specific clip where you want it to come from a very specific place in the shot. For example, this is going to look kind of silly, but maybe if instead we did the round iris, and then we click on it again and we look at it, maybe we can have it come out of where she's blowing the bubble. That might look kind of silly, but we can at least see what it looks like. Yeah, it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but we can at least see that with a little bit of creativity and the right kind of clips, you can really do something interesting on this. Another interesting thing to show you in the transitions is, let's go to a wipe. We'll try one of these. We have something called adding a border to your transitions. And what this is going to do is, as you see, as you're watching this transition go, there's nothing actually separating the two clips. It's just a line as one clip transitions into the next one. If we open this clip up, not only can we reverse it again, so it goes the other way around, we can turn on the border. So to add your border, the first thing you're going to do is pick a color. So this is going to be, what does the border of this transition look like? And just for argument's sake, to really show you what it looks like, we're going to go bright red, just by picking a color in the wheel, or you can pick it up here as well, whichever you're more comfortable with. Let's go bright blue, that'll be really obvious. We hit that, click OK. We still don't see anything because it's at 0%, so we don't actually see anything yet. So if we put our mouse over here, we can drag this number up, and we're going to go really dramatic, 7.0 there. And now we have a border. Now if we watch this, you can very clearly see where that transition is coming in. Now in a case like this is a little bit hokey. You're probably not going to want this, so you'd probably want it a little bit smaller. Or another thing that you might want to do, instead of having it be a random color, maybe you want it to be a color that's within the shot. So if you take the little eyedropper and just click any random color in the frame, and it can be absolutely anything at all. We'll just pick this little hay color up there. It turned it to match. So now as we watch it, it maybe looks a little bit more natural. Again, it's all just a matter of your own creativity and what you decide to do with it.